Lesson 9.2, page number 629. Adding and subtracting polynomials. We're going to make a really quick jump here and move to something pretty much totally different. And a polynomial, the word poly means many, and we're going to take a bunch of different terms, stick them together, and show how to combine those through addition and subtraction. So let's put one up here like 2x squared plus 3x plus 4. That is a polynomial. It's got more than two terms, 1, 2, 3, or another way to do it is count the plus or minus signs and add 1. So 1, 2, 3 terms. And we're going to add another polynomial to it, 3x squared plus 4x plus 5. Now each one of these polynomials, or because there's three terms, trinomials, each one of these cannot be simplified anymore. We can't combine anything here. This has an x squared, this has an x, and this has a 4. Well, you can't combine these because they both have to have the same exponent to combine. And this doesn't have a variable, so you can't combine a number with a variable. So this is simplified and this is simplified as much as we can go. But if there's some commonality between both of these, then we can put some stuff together. And the first step that I suggest doing is taking the parentheses off. So once you have it written, and there's a plus sign there, and we just take these parentheses off. And what we do is we combine between this polynomial and this one, the things that are common. So if we look at, I always start with the very first term, and I underline it, and then I look for another term that is similar, meaning it has the same variables and the same exponents on the variables. So I've got a 2x squared. So all I'm concerned with is the x squared. So I look over, there's another one with an x squared. So I know I can combine those two. And when I combine them, 2x squared plus 3x squared is 5. All we're doing is adding the coefficients, the number. We're not multiplying, so our exponents don't change. When we're multiplying, they do. When we're adding, the x squared, the variable just falls, just gets drug along with it. So we just add the 2 and the 3, drag the x squared there. And then what I like to do too is I cross these out to know I'm done with them. If I don't cross them out, it's real easy to go back and be confused and add them into because you forgot you put them together. Okay, then I start with my second one. There's a 3x and there's a 4x. And one thing I suggest is when you underline the sign in front of it so that you know what you're doing here. So I've got a 3x and I have a 4x. That is a 7x. Cross those out because now I'm done. And I have a plus 4 and a plus 5. So I put that on there. And that 5x squared plus 7x plus 9 is my final answer. Alright, let's just kind of keep going here. The book does a different way. They have you adding them in columns. I'm not a real proponent of that. Not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just extra work, and I really don't see the way that I'm doing it up here as being any more difficult. This says add this trinomial to this one. They don't have parentheses around it or anything. You can if you would like. In fact, probably not a bad idea to start out that way. And we have a plus sign here. We're adding the two. So let's just take the parentheses off now after I just put them on. But it's a good habit to have. Underline my 3x squared and then look for another common term and add those up. Cross those out. Then I've got a negative 2x and a positive 3x. That's why it's good to underline the sign. If you didn't underline the sign, you'd just say 2x plus 3x is 5x, but this is a negative 2x. So a negative and a positive, you find the difference between the two, and you put the sign of the largest one on there. So it would be plus 1x. Cross these out because we're done with them. And we have a 4 and a minus, or a 1 and a minus 4. And we can erase this 1 here because it's assumed that there's a 1. And we're good with that one right there. Alright, another example that they give us here in this lesson is 2. Example 2, 6y squared plus 4y minus 3, and we are adding 2y squared minus 4. Alright, so again, we can get rid of the sign here, or the parenthesis, and everything melds together there. So we've got a 6y squared and a 2y squared. We can add those together. Get rid of those. A 4y, we don't have a 4y. There aren't any other y's in here. So we just leave it alone. You can't combine it with anything, you just leave it alone. Okay, so we get rid of that. Now I have a negative 3 and a negative 4. Negative 3, negative 4, when the signs are the same, you add the numbers and you put the sign on there. So we end up with 8y plus 4y minus 7. Continuing on, let's look at another example here. Example 3. 2x cubed plus 5x squared plus 3x plus 4, and they're adding 3x squared plus 2x plus 1. Holy smokes. Alright, so we're going to look at our 2x cubed. Go along here. There aren't any more 2x cubes, so it just stands by itself. Can't add anything, but it does have to stay there, so we use that. Now a 5x squared, and we've got a positive 3x squared, so we have an 8x squared. Done with those. Positive 3x, positive 2x, done with those, a positive 4 and a positive 1, and we're good to go there. So now we have 4 terms when we combined our like terms there. Alright, let's do some subtracting. Probably won't get too far before we jump into the next video, but one thing I want you to look at here, that particular expression says that we're going to subtract everything inside of here. Well, if that's true, we're not only going to subtract the 3x, but we're going to subtract the 6. So what I suggest doing, I can go through the theory, but at this point the best way to do it is just to understand the concept that when you have a minus sign directly in front of a parenthesis, doesn't matter if it's a minus 5, a minus 3, or in this case a minus 1, when we take off the parenthesis, we have to change the sign of everything inside of the parentheses. In order to take the parenthesis, when you take this parenthesis off, what happens? That 3 automatically changes its sign, and then we change the 6 to a minus. Okay? So we have minus 3x minus 6. And that's going to be helpful when we come into subtracting polynomials here. So, let's start out with 6x squared minus 3x plus 5 minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 3. Alright, so the parenthesis that we have here, the first one, there's no sign out here, so it's a plus. So we don't have to do anything to take the parentheses off of it. We just take off the parentheses. But in order to take this set of parentheses off, we have to change the sign of everything in here. So again, remember, you take off this and it becomes a minus 3x squared. Now we change the sign here and the sign here. That's it. Now we combine like terms. So in this particular one, to combine like terms, we're going to combine our 6x squared with our minus 3x squared. So 6 minus 3 is 3. Done with those. We've got our negative 3x and our negative 2x. Done and done. Our 5 and our 3 is 8. Alright. Let's turn this off before we do a few more on 9.2b.